Hey, what's going on? Jimmy here in Chicago. I hope everybody's enjoying their weekend. We've got the 4th of July holiday coming up. And I think if I were in charge, I would release some of these senior citizens, some of these old wise guys that have been locked up for years, let them out of jail so they can spend time with their family on the holidays, right? What harm would this do to let them spend 4th of July, Easter, Thanksgiving, New Year's Eve, Christmas with their families? These men are 70, 80, 90 years old. They're no longer threats. They've paid for their crimes. I think this is something President Trump should seriously look into. But I know he's got a lot on his plate right now. I got a short story for you guys before I head out for tonight. We're going to talk about some of the mobbed up strip clubs and social clubs in Chicago, Las Vegas. Behind me was the GOAT of strip clubs right there in Las Vegas on Industrial Drive off the Las Vegas Strip. You had the legendary Crazy Horse 2. Hands down, this is the best strip club, gentlemen's club in the country during the heyday. You got Scores, you got all those great strip clubs in Atlanta, Miami, LA. Nothing can compare to what went on at the Crazy Horse 2. One of several mobbed up strip clubs. If you guys like my channel, hit the like button, subscribe, share with your friends. Before we get into it, I want to share a few things with you guys. Okay. Coming up in July, I'm going to continue with my Red of the Month. I'm going to continue to expose some of these informants. As I mentioned in previous shows, the average salary for a government informant is right around $80,000. Weekly, monthly payments. They get medical, dental treatment. They get cars, houses, relocation. It's like having a full-time job. Keeps them out of jail. And why these guys are cooperating, sometimes they're committing crimes. But yet, they're allowed to testify in court against other criminals. My July rat of the month is going to be this scumbag right here. We call him Tony Romo. Mob guy wannabe, convicted felon, and a government informant. A street snitch. Stay tuned. He's next on my list. I'm also working on a few interviews. These interviews are hard to set up because a lot of the guys I'm trying to interview, I got to go through layers of people to even get to them. Most of them watch my show. Some don't watch my show. Most of them have never done interviews before. They really don't want to tell their story and put everything out there on Front Street. Here you got Ronnie Jarrett Sr. This guy was an associate of the 26th Street crew, associate of the Mafia, a member of the 26th Street crew, the driver of Angelo the Bull LaPetria, the boss of the Chinatown crew. This guy was a professional burglar, a thief, career criminal, and an outfitted killer. He did time in prison, but never ratted, never rolled. Came home, had some beef with the boss of the 26th Street crew, Johnny Apes, and Johnny Apes had him killed. The alleged trigger man, but was never charged, Tough Tony Calabrese. No relation to Nick and Frank Calabrese. But I want to get Ronnie Jarrett Jr. I want to get him on my show to tell his powerful story, how his dad was killed by the Chicago mob. I don't know Ronnie Jarrett Jr., but I remember seeing him back in the day at some of the nightclubs and some of the restaurants. I also will never forget seeing him testify at the Family Secret trial. He was one of the very first witnesses the government called. He met with a good friend of his, Nicky F., and asked him who killed my brothers and why. Nicky didn't ghost him. He didn't gaslight him. He was straight up with him. He said it was Johnny Apes, that they had beef. But Ronnie Jarrett Jr. was very smart. He didn't follow in his father's footsteps into that life of crime, and he didn't seek revenge. But Ronnie Jarrett Sr., This is one of over 1,000 unsolved murders by the Chicago outfit. So imagine hearing from the son whose father was killed by the mob. What do you think he thinks of some of these guys? Speaking of sons, we've got Kurt Calabrese. Now, I don't know Kurt, but I've seen him a few times. I've seen him at the family secret trial when he had to sit in court and watch his own brother testify. He sat in court when his uncle testified. He sat in court when his own father testified in his self-defense, his own defense. I want to get Kurt Calabrese on my show so he can tell the other side of Nick Calabrese. Everybody knows the mob guy, Nick Calabrese, that he was a made member, that he participated in 14 murders. He gave the government information on 30 other murders. He decided to flip and cooperate. He admitted being a coward. But there's an other side to Nick Calabrese. There's a good side. And I want to have Kurt Calabrese come on my show and talk about his uncle and set the record straight. Kurt was very close with his Uncle Nick. And if and when I ever see Kurt out again, I'm going to apologize to him for talking shit about his father and his uncle. Next on my list of interviews, I'm going to interview a friend of mine, Mary Frangelo. She grew up in the Grand Avenue Patch. She actually wrote a book, Lovers, Liars, and Clowns, Tales from the Patch. And it's her personal stories of what it was like with Joey Lombardo, with some of her friends who were C-notes. She talks about her love affair with Frankie Collada and other Grand Avenue guys. She's going to come on my show and tell some hilarious stories. She was actually Joey Lombardo's lookout in the neighborhood. She would give Joey gossip and tea on what was going on. She talks about Bozo the Clown. She talks about a love affair with Frankie Collada. So she's going to be a great guest. I'm pretty sure she's already verbally agreed to it. We just got to figure out the logistics. But check out her book on Amazon, Lovers, Liars, and Clowns. She's going to talk about her book as well. Now, another friend of mine that I want to interview, he's never done an interview before. It's Skippy, the owner of Mario's Italian Lemonade Stand. This guy is in his 80s. If you're ever on Taylor Street, check out Mario's Italian Lemonade Stand. He's not really a big fan of giving interviews, but if I can get him on, he can tell unbelievable stories of what it was like growing up, hanging out with guys like Joe Ferriola, who was boss of the Chicago Mob at the time. His good friends were Butch Petroselli, Harry Allman, and several other outfit heavyweights. He would visit Harry Allman in prison for 30 years. He went twice a year for 30 years. And some of the times he would smuggle food in to some of the other wise guys like Donald Cortina and Donald Angelini. But Skippy's got an unbelievable life story of what it was like growing up with some friends and associates of the Chicago outfit. God bless Skippy. I'm not too sure if he'll do an interview, but I'm going to try. Then you got Gus Alex, right? Here's an actual photo of Gus Alex walking in the Dirksen Federal Building in 1992. The man was 76 years old. At the time, he had one of the best defense attorneys in the country, used by Tony Ricardo and several other leaders of the mob. You had Carl Walsh. Carl Walsh Jr. would escort Gus Alex into the court every day, but I became friends with a relative of Gus and his brother Sam Alex. We've met. He shared never before seen photos with me and homemade videos. He also had some personal items that I'm hoping he's willing to barter. But I would love to get Jimmy Alex Dimitri on the show to talk about Sam and Gus Alex, two men you don't really hear too much about. But he already told me he doesn't like being on camera, and he's kind of shy. So I would say that's a bit of a long shot. Another guy I want to get on my show, I already talked to him about it. The guy in the far left, my good friend Mark Jr., Mark Polchman. He's the son of Mark Polchman Sr., Chicago Outfit associate and an alleged high-ranking member of the Chicago Outlaws. I went to his trial. Him, Mike Sarno, and some other co-defendants, they were all found guilty. The most serious charge was a bombing. So I want to interview Mark Polchman to get him on my show to set the record straight, to tell the truth. We're going to talk about the trial. We're going to talk about what it was like. What's it like living without your father, raising a family while your father's locked up? I can't even imagine. I mean, that's tragic. That's one thing some of these informants and officials don't realize, that the families are affected. So I'm trying to get Mark Jr. He's going to reach out to his father, Mark Sr. If he gives me the green light, I'm going to do a nice deep dive into the Mike Sarno trial and his co-defendant, Mark Polchman. Another show I'm working on, we're going to do a story on father's rights, right? I feel a lot of times these get ghosted, they fall on deaf ears. So I'm going to interview people whose lives have been seriously changed by this. I think it's time to change some of these laws, because fathers are important. They do have rights. Every couple I know, rich or poor, who ended up in divorce, their children were affected by it. So I think this will be a powerful platform for some of the fathers out there. Now, let's get into it. We're going to talk about, like DeFranco said, there's no more money in the rackets. It causes too much heat. Nobody wants to end up in jail. So let's focus on legitimate businesses. There's so much ways to make money legally for people involved in organized crime, right? You got shopping malls, strip clubs, restaurants, cafes, nightclubs, bars, construction, real estate. You got the stock market. As long as you pay taxes, you're fine. And a big cash cow for the Chicago outfit back then, not so much now, were strip clubs. We're going to start out with the original, one of my favorite places, a place I used to go all the time. Right there at Kingsbury between North Avenue and Division Street. This was a Chicago outfit company. You had one or two wise guys, two or three associates, and a couple legitimate businessmen that put up the money for this gentleman's club. One of the best strip clubs in the country back in the day. And there was a lot of intimidating tough guys that used to work here. You had retired cops that worked as bouncers. You had mob guy associates that worked as bouncers. You had ex-thugs that worked as bouncers, professional athletes. I mean, these guys were, 6'4", 250 pounds. And if you got out of line, if you try to play a tough guy in there, start any shit, or if you abused any of the strippers, if you tried to skim on your tab, if your credit card was declined, the bouncers, the staff would take you on the parking lot and beat you to a bloody pulp. These are facts. This place you had to be on your best behavior. Luckily for me, I knew a guy, so I had no problem waiting in line, no problem paying cover charge. But a lot of memories here. It's still open today, but now it's under the name Rick's, different ownership. And the guy that used to run it was Chicago cop, mob associate Freddie Picente. Now, Freddie's a real character, right? But he had a lot of influence. He pretty much ran the Crazy Horse here in Chicago, along with other strip clubs. He was really not allowed to work at Crazy Horse 2 in Las Vegas. Sadly, why? Because he was in the black book. He even got arrested outside at the Las Vegas MacArthur Airport. But Fred Picente was part of the Bill Hanhart crew. This was a group of high-ranking Chicago detectives that were cops, but also running a multi-million-dollar sophisticated burglary crew. That's right. You can check out some other stories I did. They would rob jewelry salesmen throughout the Midwest. But I bring up Fred Picente because he used to, one of the guys that ran the club, Crazy Horse here in Chicago. Now, a main guy, a legend, an old-timer, one of the last Mohicans, you got Skippy. Skippy ran Crazy Horse in Chicago and the Crazy Horse 2 in Las Vegas. And don't let that handsome face fool you. He may not look like a strip club manager, but he was one of the best. God bless Skippy and his family. I remember going to the Crazy Horse back in the day, and I could give you a list from A to Z, all the celebrities, professional athletes, and VIPs that I used to see in the club. I'll never forget the first time I ever seen Michael Jordan in there. I seen Dennis Rodman with Carmen Electra. I seen Larsa Pippen with her boyfriend at the time, Scottie Pippen. I seen John Cusack at Crazy Horse too. I mean, the list goes on and on. Sadly, though, Crazy Horse in Chicago was closed. It's reopened. I mean, they usually last probably 10, 20 years, and then they shut them down, if that. But now it's a place called Rick's Cabaret. Now let's get back to Vegas, right? In the mid '80s, when they started tearing down the old hotels, all the old mobbed up hotels, when Tony Spilotro, his brother Frankie Collada, the Hole in the Wall gang, Lefty, when all those Chicago outfit guys were removed, a new regime came in, mixed in with a couple guys from New York. You had guys like Donald the Wizard Angelini, the best BM in the country, right there with Dominic Large, Fat Herbie, and I think some of the Genovese guys. They still had a little piece left, nothing like the old days. And one of them mobbed up, probably the best strip club in the country at that time was Crazy Horse 2. This was the goat of all strip clubs. All your wise guys from all over the country were treated with the VIP treatment every time they went here. You had celebrities, A-list actors, VIPs, professional athletes, rock stars, politicians, judges, you name it, cops. Everyone frequented the Crazy Horse. One of the guys that used to run it was Chicago Outfit associate Rick Rizzoli. And he had a good run. He's probably one of the biggest legitimate money makers affiliated with the Chicago mob, with the exception of the Chicago stock market, maybe some of the trucking business. But he always had issues, right? Whether it was issues with the liquor licenses, people, victims that used to get beat up in the parking lot would sue. He had a lot of pressure, right? Pressure from the Las Vegas Metro Police, pressure from the FBI. But you can't talk about the Crazy Horse 2 in Vegas without bringing up Rick's number one, public enemy number one, a local Buffalo Jim. I mean, just look at this guy, Jim Berrier. And that's one thing, just like in the movie Casino, a lot of these local Nevadans, people that lived in Nevada, cowboys, farmers, they didn't like it, all these slick, wise guys from New York City, Chicago, coming into their town running things. But this guy, he would do constantly fuck with Crazy Horse, like putting a big buffalo right there in front. And these two, Rick and Big Jim, went back and forth for years. Non-stop beef. I think they even had a couple civil suits. And sure enough, after Rick spent about a year in prison, never ratted, never rolled, when he came home after doing 12 months in prison, 2 days later, Buffalo Jim was killed. This is one of over 1,000 unsolved murders allegedly by the Chicago outfit. And a lot of people think that Rick was responsible, but he had a lot of connections to organized crime. But if any of you guys know what happened to Buffalo Bill, please enter into my comments. Now, aside from Rick, a good friend of his, business partner, you got Rocky Lombardo. He ran the Crazy Horse 2 as well with Rick, also Skippy. This is Joe Lombardo's brother. He ran it with an iron fist. Like I said, any of these guys, any patrons, any customers that got too drunk, that were doing low, selling drugs, breaking rules, getting out of hand, anybody that tried to skim out on the tab, anybody that disputed a credit card charge, anybody that verbally or physically abused the strippers, they were escorted into the parking lot, usually towards the back by the alley. They're bouncers again. These were all tough guys, knock-around guys. They would literally beat the brakes off you, beat you to a pulp. Most of the guys never came back, and then the Crazy Horse 2 had a reputation, meaning you better behave yourself when you go to that place, or you might not make it out of there alive. That's how Rocky, Skippy, and Rick ran those clubs. Now, here's a silent part of the Crazy Horse. You got Joe Lombardo, alleged boss of the Grand Avenue crew. Joey, in court, testified in his own defense. He was in his 70s, that he never took a blood oath. He never pricked his finger. He denied killing Danny Seifert. He denied being boss of the Grand Avenue crew. He said the president has a bigger crew. He also went on to say that George Bush and Dick Cheney should be on trial. Joey said the only thing he's guilty of is operating the largest remote dice game in the city of Chicago. If I was on that jury, I would have found Joe Lombardo not guilty because Mrs. Seifert, God bless her and her family for their loss, but there's no way in hell she could positively ID Joe Lombardo 1,000% because the gunman had a ski mask on. To me, that's reasonable doubt. But I bring up Joey because this is just one of many scams that he was involved in. He had the California Club, a high-end golf resort. He had interest in Crazy Horse, other legitimate businesses. And like Jimmy Marcello said, that he liked Joey, and Joey had a lot of scams. Now, getting back to the Crazy Horse 2, anybody who was anybody frequenting the place. Here you got Freddie Pacente. He pretty much ran Crazy Horse in Chicago. Polecats. You got famous actor Chaz. He used to frequent the Crazy Horse 2, and then you got my buddy Donald, who was a regular at Crazy Horse 2. This is just three of several very popular men, heavyweights, outfit associates, big shots, whatever you want to call them, that would hang out at Crazy Horse. Here's a great photo of the two men that ran Crazy Horse 2, along with Skippy. You got Rick Rizzolio and Joe Lombardo's brother, Rocco. Now you got the famous porn star Jenna Jameson, right? She did a residency there at the Crazy Horse 2, I think 3 months. You had A-list actors, guys like Robert De Niro would frequent the Crazy Horse 2. You had Joe Pesci. Joe Pesci, when he would go there, he would smoke out the VIP room with his cigars. You also had George Clooney, who would take that red-eye flight from Vegas. It's 1 hour from LA to Vegas. He would visit the Crazy Horse 2, as well as all the rock stars. Vince Neil was a regular at the Crazy Horse 2, and he would usually surround himself with an entourage of women. But one of my favorites regulars at the strip club, Crazy Horse 2, you got Mike Tyson. Now, Mike Tyson lived in Henderson, Nevada, and some of the strippers said that Mike would not behave himself at the club. He would grope them, stick his tongue down their throat, pretty much try to have sex with them right there in the VIP room. And some of the bouncers had to be very careful dealing with a guy like Iron Mike, because Tyson was crazy back in the day. But basically their goal was to get him out of the club, get him into the limo, and make it home safe. But just picture Iron Mike Tyson hanging out and raising havoc at Crazy Horse. Now, I'll never forget my cousin Richie. We're walking out of the Crazy Horse 2 in Vegas, and who do we see? Tom Jones. This guy was sweating like a pig, white as a ghost. His jaw was twitching. His eyes were bulged out of his head. I thought the fucking guy was going to have a heart attack. Tom Jones was flying on cocaine, coming out of the Crazy Horse 2 in Vegas. Now we'll talk about the women. Some of the hottest women in the country, right? All different shapes, sizes, and colors. In Chicago, the Crazy Horse and Crazy Horse 2, it's a pretty big operation. They had under 150 employees and 5,800 women. 5,800 beautiful women. And what they would do, they would give them flight therapy. They would have some of these women fly out to Vegas for 3-6 months, or they fly up to the Crazy Horse in Chicago and work for a couple months. Some of them would work with other mob-up strip clubs, go out to New York, go out to Boston, down in New Orleans, out to Seattle, LA. These women made hundreds of thousands of dollars. Usually everything was comped. They were protected. Anybody fucked with them, they had the outfit guys behind them. And some of them were smart. They opened up businesses, hair salons, nail salons, restaurants, bars. Some of them even invested in the stock market. And then you had some of the other whores that went to college. Some of the best schools, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan State, Purdue. You gotta respect the hustle though. But hands down, in my opinion, Crazy Horse 2 had some of the hottest women in the industry. Now, strip clubs would not exist if it wasn't for local police, right? Especially in the small town suburbs. The police want their end, right? They want their cut. Half of them like to hang out at strip clubs. But Crazy Horse was a little different. Since the fallout of when a lot of the outfit guys got pinched, Tony Spilotro, Frankie Collada, Lefty, Hole in the Wall gangs, Metro police wanted nothing more than to rid of all these wise guys. So they would constantly raid and harass people at the Crazy Horse 2. Rick Rizzolo had issues with them. He eventually tried actually suing them in a civil case. Now, like DeFranco said, there's no more money in the rackets, but there's a lot of money to be made legitimately. Legitimate mean stock market, the Board of Trade, Chicago Mercantile Exchange, construction, real estate, restaurants, nightclubs, strip clubs. A lot of cash to be made in the strip clubs. I don't remember the dollar amount, but it was millions and millions of dollars that Crazy Horse 2 and Crazy Horse generated for the Chicago outfit. All legit as long as you're paying tax. Plus, there's other ways to make money in strip clubs, right? You've got prostitution, loan sharking, gambling. I'm sure drug dealing goes on. Cash cow for any organized crime or street gang to also launder some of their money. Now, nothing good lasts forever, right? They had a hell of a run at the Crazy Horse 2. They surrounded themselves with all the big shots, made millions of dollars, had some of the hottest women in the world. And one day, right around 2006, I think, 5 a.m. in the morning. Keep in mind, if the feds are coming, they're coming early. 5 a.m., 80 to 100 agents show up and raid the club. 15, 16 guys get pinched. A couple of them took off. A couple of them disappeared. Most of them pled guilty, including Rick. None of them did really serious jail time, maybe a couple years or less. And then sure enough, like a lot of mobbed up establishments, there's a suspicious fire. Crazy Horse 2 eventually gets torched down. By this time, after the indictments, they had a hell of a time getting their liquor license. They had so many lawsuits, over a dozen lawsuits, victims, patrons, men that got beat to a pummel out in the parking lot by the strip club's bouncers, and they eventually sued the strip club. Fast forward, they eventually closed. Rick tried to sell the club, but wasn't very successful. But that was the end of one of the hottest gentleman club in the country at the time, Crazy Horse 2 and Crazy Horse here in Chicago. I'm sure you guys have a lot of stories. Please enter your comments. I'd like to hear about those. Now we're going to talk about another mobbed up strip club I used to go to back in the day called All Stars. I'd rather not say the man's name, but I'll tell you right now, he's locked up in prison. I think he was in ADX Supermax, Chicago outfit heavyweight. Him and his crew ran this place for years, and they ran it just like the Crazy Horse. Very intimidating, cliquey place. If you got out of line, these guys would beat you to a pulp in the parking lot. I remember every other week when I would go here, there was always a fight in the parking lot. It was either two drunk guys going at it, or the bouncers were beating the shit out of somebody. But they had some of the hottest women in the city, all used to work out of this place, and this was definitely a mobbed up joint, if you will. And just like Crazy Horse, one day there was a fire. A lot of fires in mobbed up establishments. Why? They collect the insurance. But you know what I'm saying? Insurance is one of the biggest scams, so why not sue the insurance company? They're not suing you personally. They're going after the insurance. Now we'll keep going. Probably the oldest strip club, Still going strong today, owned by outfit associate Sam Sikola and a couple other guys. I'm not going to mention their names. You got the Admiral Theater. Now, this is a little bit different than Crazy Horse 2. Here, it's a much younger entertainers, and there's no alcohol. It's nudity, but no alcohol. So, no alcohol, no drama, no fighting. A lot of Chicago outfit guys used to hang out here, not so much back in the day, but this is definitely a mobbed up club. If you're ever in Chicago, you guys can check it out. Some of the biggest porn stars in the industry have done shows here. And then right here in Bridgeview, another mobbed up club. Not so much now because it's under new owners, but when it first opened, some serious outfit guys invested in this, along with a couple legitimate businessmen. You got Polecats right there in Bridgeview, a lot of young, beautiful girls. One quick story about Polecats is two crooked, corrupt Chicago cops. I went to the trial. It was Gary Engel and Steve Mendel. These guys were like outfit wannabe guys, but they were corrupt cops. They were planning on extorting the owner or the manager of Polecats. They were going to bring them back to a remote location they called Club Med. It was basically a torture chamber, and try to torture this guy and get him to turn over everything. That's how sick and evil these bastards were. When Steve Mendel went to one of the bosses on Grand Avenue to ask permission, he was slapped and shot down. He's lucky they didn't kill him for even thinking of extorting a connected guy. But Polecats is still going on today, making millions and millions of dollars. If you're ever in the Southwest Side, you definitely want to check it out. So that's it. That's my the clubs that I know that the outfit was involved in. You had Crazy Horse 2, which was Uno number 1, the goat of all strip clubs. You had the old All Stars in North Lake, Admiral Theater, which is still going on strong today, and last but not least, Polecats. Now we are going to get into, I already did a show, but we're going to touch lightly on some of the social clubs in Chicago. Back in the Italian neighborhoods, social clubs were on every other block. You say, well, what's a social club? It's nothing. There's really nothing going on there. It's a bunch of men, young and old, hanging around, drinking, smoking, watching TV, cooking, playing cards, watching the girls go by, and busting balls. That's what I like, all the major ball breaking that goes on. Here's an old club that was shut down in, I think it was in Melrose Park. A friend of mine, Fred Antheon, he used to rake this club. They had anywhere from 10 to 15 men and women that used to just go to the club and play cards, right? Then you got one or two poor losers, gets caught, gets in trouble, and decides to rat. Before you know it, the sheriffs raid the club and shut it down. But the ball busting and all the shit that some of these guys used to talk in this club is legendary. Now here's a little club. I'm not a member of the club, but every now and then I go here and have a drink. The bartender's super cool, good guy named Richard. And this club is right there on 26th and Oakley, and it's still open today. And if you're ever in that neighborhood, there's a lot of really nice mom and pop Italian restaurants. Here's another club that's standing today. At one time, they had 500 members right here in Bridgeport, not too far from White Sox Park. This was Angelo Petria's old club. And the money that him and Frank Schweiss used to extort from Chinatown, they used that money to pay off some of their defense attorneys and to build this club. This place is like a freaking museum. You could still go by today. Sometimes the guys are nice enough to let you inside to walk around, but you definitely don't want to take any photos or make any TikTok videos inside here. But back in the day, a lot of the heavyweights in the 26th Street crew would hang here. And I heard from a good friend when Angelo the Bull, when he died, they took his photo off the wall and they each took turns stomping that picture. That's how much they despised Angelo the Bull. And then here's the club in my neighborhood. This is probably the oldest social club in Chicago. We call it the Survivor Club or the Boomerang Club right there on Grand and Main, not too far, kitty quarter from Diamato's Bakery. But back in the day, late 90s, late 1999, early 2000s, I'm not a member here, but I would walk by every day. Sometimes I would bring my daughter in the stroller. Mikey Switek would yell at me to take the nookie out of her mouth. Dominic Calarco. World War II veteran who ran the club. When Joe Lombardo went to prison, he used to buy my daughter cookies from the bakery next door. But on any given day, you would see anywhere from 15 to 20 guys, nobody working, all hanging outside, cooking, smoking, watching the girls go by, and busting each other's chops. That's what I like about the social club, all the shit that goes on, all the shit talking and ball breaking that goes on. Which reminds me, I got a special treat for you. I'm going to share with you 2 little clips of the inside of a club where they're doing some major ball breaking. Let me know what you guys think. I'm going to share my screen with you. Hopefully this will work. All right, let's check this out.
He's a fucking gang.
There you got the young guys mixed in with the old guys, right? They're not doing anything illegal. But again, major ball breaking. Let me pause it. I got another little video clip you guys are going to love. Same club, same group of guys.